The first pop is loud enough that heads turn toward the edge of the rooftop, where the ocean is just a black sheet beyond the glass balustrade and the fairy lights. Breathe in a slow pulse across the beams. We're at Skylight House, a private club perched above Clifton's shoreline. And the night air is warm, salt syrupy. Tugging at the corners of place cards I weighed with pebbles from my mother's garden. In the middle of the tasting table, the 3 bottles I chose, 1 blank de blancs, 1 rose, and 1 non-alcoholic brut for the elder stand, like little skyscrapers, labels aligned because I align things. Amna, the caterer, catches my eye and nods. It begins. I'm the operations manager who writes post-incident reports in my sleep. Give me a mess and I will label the bins, color code the risks, tag every decision with a timestamp. Tonight, I only have to be a bride managing a rehearsal. The contradiction is thick as humidity. My mother-in-law, Sarah, sits in the chair that I set for Hertha. Chair with the shawl, she said, is good luck. Yet she is doing the thing she promised she wouldn't do. She makes her laugh into the glass, the laugh that tells every person within earshot who is senior and who is not. Champagne, she says with that soft Karachi drawl that turns a word into a social audit. For this crowd, I keep my face set to calm, the way you hold a file so it doesn't slide open and spill. Behind her, Rasa, the club's event manager, pretends to be busy with the dimmer. I can feel the stack of papers in my tote. It is not heavy, but it carries the weight of every time I was told that planning is not feeling. Around us, the room is a rectangle of glass, white linen, chrome. And the greenery I insisted on because the club's own palms looked sickly. The sound is soft. See, distant horn, the clink of stemware, my fiancé's throat when he tries to bridge. If this were only about champagne, it would end here. In a shrug, a different fizz poured. A story of compromise over beverages. But my reputation, my precision, my work, what people hire me to do hangs in the balance. Because this is not about taste. It is about process and who gets to call compliant what they don't understand. In the next minutes, you'll see how a line muttered into a flute unwinds a spool of receipts. How a microscript practiced in bathrooms and cars will land like a stamp. And how a contract is not a napkin unless you let it be. There is an off note floating under the cardamom air. It came earlier when Sarah arrived 10 minutes late and put her handbag on the wrong chair. The one with the place card for my mother, Sita. Then flitted it away like the little misfile that happens when status walks into a room. She kept saying we are easy, do whatever. Then changed the subject whenever whatever included boundaries. And now when the cork sighs and the tiny clouds rise in the flute like they know the choreography. She leans toward the table with a bright stage whisper. Local taste, she says, with that small flex of eyebrow. Not Paris. The ocean wind creeps through the shrubs and brings the smell of wet rope and grilled prawns from the club's other terrace. I wrap my shawl a little tighter. It's not cold, but the night has teeth. Amna doesn't perform. She never does. She slides forward the first tray of Canop's prawn on fennel leaf, citrus shortbread with goat cheese. A micro-herb that tastes like new rain and says, not quiet, not loud. The labels requested by the client are here. She glances at me the way we do in operations to confirm that our bodies are also sign-offs. On the white tray, 4 little transparent stands hold printed cards. I had drafted them in 10-point Garamond, blank de blancs, sparkling rose, non-alcoholic brut, lemongrass soda, 2 lines each, 1 for name, 1 for pairing. Sarah reads them, and her nose does an invisible twitch, like the glass is catching an odor I can't see. This is a Karachi wedding, she says to no one and everyone. Our people don't drink like this. They will think it's cheap or foreign. I would have chosen, something known. A peculiar minute stretches when the wind lifts the smallest of the cards, the lemongrass one, and it skates slow to the edge of the table and stops at the lip as if scared. I press it back where it belongs and level the stand. That one breath where you think things will just sit. They don't. My fiancé Haroon says my name. When he wants me to stand down, he lengthens it into a little song. Neela, he says, maybe we just... He is a good man who has learned to survive to empires his mother's, and mine hand his default is to de-escalate, not out of cowardice, but out of hope that a room can reset itself if the right person says the light is too bright. He looks at me with the eyes I love, and then at his mother with the boy who once stood in kitchens with a spoon for stirring and a wrong opinion about rice. Amna sets a knife down with care. Raza's dimmer hums like a file server. I smile at Sira. Try the rose, I say. It will help the kebabs sing. She doesn't touch any glass. What she touches is her phone, and the contact lists like a rosary. I told you now, she says, sliding into Urdu with the old intimacy that excludes like a velvet rope. People will talk. She lifts her chin and lets the words drop where the tray is. Seems I'm not family. Amna looks at me. I freeze. Just a second. Somewhere inside the freezer of my stomach, something elegant and ferocious knocks. There is a backstory. There is always a ledger of small numbers that add to a proof. When Haroon and I told his parents we were getting married at my mother's old bungalow in PECHS for the Mendi. At the rooftop club for the reception, the conversation was immaculate on its surface. Sira smiled and said the right things while her thumb mapped the seam of the couch. She asked for my mother's phone number and then called her once to discuss flowers and never again. The next week she sent me an Excel of family favorites. I color-coded it and sent it back with costs per head, sourcing notes, and a column without label that said, boundaries. When she told me, laughing, oh, we don't do budgets, I introduced a word that made her look at me like I had said something indecent in public. Compliance. I am good at compliance. In my job, I read contracts like recipes and call vendors when their incidental expenses wobble. I don't shout. I reverse, rescind, escalate, cite, and comply. When the club required a permit, I got one. When they asked for deposits, I wired them with the transaction ID in the subject line. Skylight House Booking PKR 75.000. The 2nd of October, 2025, wire ID 9F3024. When Amna sent tasting notes, I printed them and countersigned, because food is memory and you sign for memory. Every choice we made had a timestamp. Amna and Raza and I built a spreadsheet that would make an auditor weep with joy. When Sarah said we'll see, I said we'll file. Little red flags had already planted themselves in the soil of our days. The time Sarah changed the rehearsal time by texting her sisters on the side thread, not the main one. The time she accidentally included a cousin in a vendor meeting and then introduced herself to the pastry chef as co-host. The day she said we should save on invitations by doing a WhatsApp broadcast, then frowned when I pulled out the contract with the letterpress shop and ran my finger under the clause labeled executed mock-ups. She wanted gold foil and an apology from physics. I wanted cohesion and the right envelopes. I kept telling Haroon it was fine, that love is a series of tolerances. He kept saying we could pick our battles. I don't pick battles. I set processes that absorb them. 2 nights before the rehearsal, the missing item appeared. A case of familiar bubbly in my parking spot. No card. My building's guard said a lanky boy hauled it from a white Prado. I logged it on my phone with a photo, redacted the label in my own mind so I wouldn't make it about class. I put a margin note in my wedding file, unapproved delivery. 13th of October, 2025, 7:33 p.m., parking. I am not a cop. I am a planner. I placed the case in the lobby for pickup and asked Amna to bring our selections from the clubs permitted. Supplier per our contract, Clause 7D. Beverage sourcing. The next morning, Sarah called my mother to ask if she liked our champagne and whether your daughter had taste. At the rehearsal, I seat Sarah next to my mother so the conversation can be less theatrical. The chairs are white Chiavari because they looked nice against the wood and the green. The runner is linen. The tall arrangements of eucalyptus. My compromise with an aunt who wanted peonies because Instagram told her to. The air is warm with boilers and brine. Amna brings a spoon test from the saucepan, the one with tamarind. And I close my eyes because all you want from a wedding is for one taste to become a forever bookmark. It is perfect. Sira watches none of it. She watches me. The little micro behaviors I cataloged in my mind. The half smile when Amna rests her hand on my chair. The way she lifts the wine list and flips it like it's a flyer for a discount tire shop. The volume she chooses so that the three aunties at the far table can register a position. My mother takes her water glass and drinks without swallowing right away. The old trick for staying present when your body wants to leave. I promised myself when we got engaged that I would not shout. I would use process and receipts. So when Sira says that line, seems I'm not family. Like she's auditioning for some morality play where a daughter-in-law is an interloper with a spreadsheet. I choose the paper. I pull the folder from my tote and set it on the tablecloth. It is not dramatic. Amna knows the move and slides the sauces 2 inches away so I don't get turmeric on the signature pages. Let's be very clear, I say, and my voice is low because a room shrinks when you raise your volume. We made choices together and I documented them. I will show you every one. The fairy lights dim 1 notch. Raza stops pretending and looks. I open to the tab I labeled beverages. The first sheet is the club's vendor compliance policy. The second is the email thread where Sarah promised to defer to the club's permitted beverage supplier for all sparkling drinks. Her exact phrase from the 21st of September 2025. 9:06 p.m. I printed the whole thread because threads get deleted by accident. When people don't like their earlier selves. I have the signed reception contract with Clause 7D highlighted and initialed by both Haroon and me. And the deposit acknowledgement with the word received stamped in blue ink because I went in person to have it stamped. There's the tasting approval CSL 11, with SCUS for the 3 bottles and the non-alcoholic brut we chose for elders. And the note in the margin in Amna's hand, as per bride's request, sparkling offered in 3 lanes. I place it all like a dealer with cards that were always the truth. Don't be so formal, Syra says, eyes fluttering at the presence of the written word. We are just family, Yar. Exactly, I say. And family doesn't ambush process. The smell of the eucalyptus is high and green, a good counter to the ocean's metal breath. Somewhere a glass chimes. Haroon reaches palm flat on the table, a neutral gesture. Amy, he says, with a man's voice this time. We agreed. She holds the wine list like it's a shield. You agreed, she says. I wasn't consulted. Everyone knows the groom's mother manages the flow. It reflects on us. People will talk. It is not the first time she has told me people are a censor I should respect. People will talk if my blouse is cut wrong. People will talk if we serve buffet instead of plated. People will talk if I send an email after 10 p.m. I have a name for it in my head. The Board of Invisible Directors. I do not comply with boards that do not file their minutes. Everyone was consulted, I say. And turn the next sheet. My summary memo. 1 page where the who, what. One of the beverage choices listed and the signatures sit like a quiet choir. Mine, Haroon's, Raz's. Amna's. There is 1 signature missing because Syra refused to sign anything related to the wedding. She called it bureaucracy. As if care is a scandal. She laughs without humor. So many papers, she says, for bubbles. It is never about bubbles. It is about who can move a chair with a smile. I leaf to the last item, a printout of a WhatsApp message sent from an unknown number to Amna. The previous night at 11:22 p.m. Make sure to swap to Astoria Gold for the antetables. The bride will not notice. Amna had forwarded it to me with a timestamp and a note. This is not the approved source. The number was saved in her phone as V. We had not told Sarah that we were verifying all vendor communication through official threads. We had not told her because we were naive or kind. Either way, we learned. The room goes still in that way, rehearsals. Sometimes Dufu pauses at lips. Someone's phone screen becomes a little moon. Outside, the C makes a continuous consonant that you feel on your teeth. Raza's dimmer clicks again, a notch up and I can see the texture on the linen. The barely there waffle that reminds me of the tea towels from my mother's kitchen. Sarah glances at the page with the V and looks casual in the exact way people do when they have walked into their own shadow. She picks up her glass water and lets the rim rest against her lower lip, but doesn't drink. I don't know who that is, she says, fake baffled. And even if I did, what's the big deal? It's just, Astoria is known. Amna places a finger softly on the tasting approval CSL 11. The big deal, she says, is that we are a licensed premises with a supply and permit chain. I am audited on this. The word audited is a foghorn. It calls the right ships. I simply nod. This is the part where, in my day job, I would set up a calm loop. Initiate, notify, verify, document. Here, the loop is already set. Raza steps closer. He has the posture of a man built by restaurants, empathetic spine, tactical feet. Mrs. Nakvi, he says to Sarah, tone respectful and lined with granite. We will comply with the contracted selection unless the client instructs otherwise. The client is Ms. Anila. The word client isn't cold. It's honest. Families often pretend that money's a mist. I prefer steam, something that has a source and a pipe. The microscript arrives like a train you can hear before you see it. Sarah says in a voice that wants to be small but is recorded by every ear within 10 feet. If we are keeping score, then count me out. I feel the room resize. Shrinkage at the edges, expansion at the center. My mother shifts her weight and sits taller. Haroon turns his head toward me like we are a committee in an executive session. The aunties at the far table adjust their shawls. They won't admit it later, but they lean in without leaning in. I exhale through my nose, slow, because the smell of grilled prawns is now joined by the butter bloom of the first naan coming off the tawa. This is not the only document I brought. There is a bank log, the wire confirmation for the venue deposit, which Sarah had tried to reverse by making a fraud report the week after we sent it. Hamoud Mai, bank manager, thin, precise. A man whose pen is always fluid had called me and said, "Lo, someone is claiming unauthorized transfer." He had verified my authorization phrase, green ledger, and flagged the report as malicious. We filed a counter affidavit with the bank's fraud unit, detached Sarah's text from the day before. So generous of you to handle deposits. The reversal attempt was denied. The funds remained recorded, frozen for the booking's protection. I brought the email with Hamad's redaction of Sarah's phone number. Her initials visible, date stamped. The note, false report. Caller informed of compliance consequences. I didn't show it now. I would save it for when the room required a different page size. Little open loops braided through the weeks. The missing place cards that the printer found in their bin? Kiss, someone had called for a reprint and asked to add the word Nakvi family table on all. The script phrase Sarah used when a boundary was marked. Don't make me a villain. The locked drawer in her sitting room where Haroon once found old RSVP cards that had never been posted to my guests, which he slipped into his pocket and then called me from the car, voice both ashamed and furious. The contact saved under V who sent that Astoria message to Amna later. We would find it belonged to a driver associated with a cousin who organized adjustments for weddings. The audit clause in the club's contract that allows the client to request all supplier communication logs for the event week. At the time, it was just words. Tonight, it would be a lever. The tasting proceeds because food cure is also due process. Amna holds out small spoons with a second sauce screen, cool with jalapeno go caviar, that pops like a polite yes. Haroon tastes and does a shoulder dance under control. Then sounds relieved he can be enthusiastic about something uncomplicated. Sarah lets the spoon pass by her hand without acknowledgement. I swallow water the way my mother does and let the back of my throat burn with restraint. I make one call. Not on the phone. A call in the air that only Raza and Amna hear, because we rehearsed it like we rehearse fire drills. Shall we do the service run? I say. Raza makes a sign like a conductor. And the staff moves with a practiced choreography. Trays lifted, glasses set, coasters aligned all at once. The developing painting becomes clear. On the bar, the 3 bottles stand next to an upright iPad with the vendor compliance app open. On the screen is the supplier's manifest for tonight. 3 SKUs listed with quantities, driver signatures captured. Delivery photos timestamped at the service entrance at 17:12. I had asked for this after the Prado incident. The app is boring until it's not. The camera caught the side of the delivery van with the permitted supplier's logo and the driver's hand with a scar shaped like a comma. I like commas. Commas keep things honest. Before we pour, I say we validate. The aunties smile with a complicated kindness that says, "We will tell our daughters this is possible." Haroon's friend Imran, who runs a small export business and respects a manifest like a poem, leans in. Sira sighs dramatically, like a woman who has been forced to attend a seminar. Amna taps the screen. All in order. We proceed. Her voice is a stamp. The first pour is the non-alcoholic brut for the Elder's sharp, clean citrus. A taste that can be a bridge. My mother touches her glass to mine and whispers Mubarak, like a tiny thread she knots to tie something in place. The second pour is the rose, which sings like it has a scandal to share, but will never share it with the wrong ears. The third is the blank de blancs, mineral and faithful. I watch Sarah's eyes each time. She doesn't reach. Her hands stay on the clutch with a little gold clasp that clicks like a metronome. Then it happens, the mid-roll cliffhanger that teaches a room to hush. The elevator door opens and a courier in a navy shirt steps out with a white envelope in his hand. He finds me with his eyes the way couriers do when you're the one who signs and holds out the envelope like a secret. For Ms. Anila, he says. The sign-off sheet he carries has a blank next to my printed name. He points to the line. I sign, print the time, and he disappears into the elevator, silent as a retracting blade. The envelope is heavier than normal. Inside is a stack of pages and 1 silver USB drive. The top sheet bears the club's letterhead and the words Audit Logs, Vendor Communications, Event Week. Raza had filed the request at my instruction that afternoon, citing Clause 11A of the contract. The client's right to audit communications relevant to supply chain integrity. It should have arrived Monday. It arrives now in a moment that tastes like stagecraft, but is just the universe obeying causality. The USB holds digital records. The printed pages are the call logs from the club's main line to third parties. The second page shows an outgoing call from the club's front desk to a number labeled V at 21:43 the previous evening, lasting 2 minutes. There are also 2 missed calls from the same number to the kitchen, line at 21:56 and 22:02. Ross's signature is at the bottom, with the word certified. The light along the beam flickers once like it inhaled too fast. The smell of the naan fades and is replaced by a hit of star anise from the beef course. My skin registers a shift in temperature that is not about weather. It's about physics, pressure in a room. I do not grandstand. I simply place the logs next to the tasting approval and the V message printout. I slide them toward Sarah slowly, as one would slide a pen to a witness, not a pistol. It appears, I say, someone tried to modify our selections outside the process. The call originated from the club line, which means someone in this room or someone with access to this room made it. This is not an accusation. It is a fact. Haroon's chair creaks very quietly. My mother's throat clears in a sound I have known since childhood. This is her way of saying, I am with you without putting fuel on a flame. Sarah stares at the logs. Her face does a set of things I can't fully read: indignation, calculation, something like fear, but only for a second. Then she does what she does best. She makes the problem about civility. What is this? A trial? She says, laughing like people who love you would never bring a USB to dinner. You always were a clerk at heart, Anila. I am a clerk, I say. A clerk makes the world work. 1 line, it lands. It should be enough. Often it is. But there are wider nets to cast when small nets catch a crocodile. I gesture to Amna. She reaches under the bar and produces a black folder. I have not yet shown anyone. It holds the reversal emails from the printer, proof that someone requested changes to the place cards and tried to add NACV family table to all. The emails are from an account that bears Sarah's first name with a number behind it, calm and deniable. The printer refused because I had executed the mock-ups and paid in full. Any changes required an in-person revision with my authorization. Attached to that thread is a PDF, a mock-up for a banner reading hosted by the Nakvi family in all caps. It is comical and heartbreaking at once, like someone putting their name on water. I do not push that page toward her. I keep it in the folder and let its weight remain with me. Mercy is a kind of compliance, too. Hamid's banknote I hold in my other hand. Its redaction bars thin and surgical. I have it because it may matter later if someone calls my precision a pathology. For now, I let it rest. We eat because food grounds a narrative in muscle. The kebabs come hot on flat steel, char hissing, fresh mint smacking the air. The naans bubble like ideas that refuse to be small. Amna runs the service like a clean orchestra, and Haroon's eyes soften with each perfect bite as if pleasure is a vote. Sira stabs a piece of paneer and chews like it's a witness. She says nothing, which is a kind of speech. Later, when the plates are being cleared and the coffee cups, set the little ones. White, that fit the thumb, I slide my phone on the table and open the memo app. I tap the microphone and set it between us. I'm going to summarize, I say. And the words are the ones I use in debriefs when I want to make certain the minutes will be the way the night remembered itself. And not the way the loudest person claimed it. Rehearsal tasting held at Skylight House, 20 o'clock hours. Present, bridegroom, groom's mother, bride's mother, caterer, club manager, selected family. Agenda, tasting, and service run. Verification of supplier manifest. Issue. Attempted modification of contracted beverage selection, external intervention attempt via club line and WhatsApp. Resolution, reaffirmed compliance with Contract Clause 7D. Validated manifest, confirmed audit logs, Clause 11A. Next steps, none. Must you? Sira says, but her voice is soft now and something like tired. It's off-putting. Only if you intend to forget, I say. The ocean breathes. The light's warm. A server adjusts the vase nearest us, so the lilies face away. The scent had grown too insistent. As we stand to leave, Sarah reaches for Haroon. She holds his wrist for a beat longer than usual, then let's go, and her hand grazes mine by accident. It is warm, dry, human. I am not a machine. I register the little grief that we will not be simple with each other. Not now, maybe not ever. I also register the relief that a process can be a boundary that allows love to survive in a smaller, truer container. 2 days pass. They are filled with small run-up stress fittings. The cousin who lands without warning, the uncle who demands a hotel room and then complains about the air conditioning. Amna sends me the final service schedule with timestamps names. And a column titled Notes that includes bride, prefers shawl on chairback. Raza sends me a security update, additional guards for the service entrance. Vendor badges issued, codes for the kitchen door changed. We revoke all non-essential access codes at 18 o'clock on wedding day. A neat entry in the log says, access credentials rescinded. Recorded and certified. Haroon and I have one fight about something so small it could fit under a fingernail. He says I make everything a process. I say process is a kindness. He sleeps at his parents' for the night tradition and texts at 2 a.m. Amy says you don't like us. I reply at 2:01. I don't like being managed without consent. He doesn't respond. I fall asleep with a pen in my hand, ridiculous, but true. Wedding day is a different species of time. The light is a conspirator. The heat is a third party in every conversation. The smell of marigolds is a permanent sentence. My mother's sitting room is a staging area. Pins, powder, prayer. Sumaya, our neighbor, slips in with a tray of tea, sets it near the mirror like she's placing a small blessing. She has the posture of a witness and the laugh of a friend. You look like you are writing an exam you prepared for your whole life, she says. I breathe. She pins my dupatta in a way that makes my shoulders feel like yes. At noon, Najumai lawyer friend texts, all good on the venue permit. Officer Malik sends regards. She had helped me file the excise permit weeks ago, kept a copy in her office safe because she knows family dynamics produce opportunists. If anyone challenges, she had said, we have the executed permit notarized, recorded. The verbs soothed me like a lullaby. At 5, the rooftop is a painting again. The ocean is an indulgence. The light tucks itself behind the buildings and then returns honeyed. The room fills with a choreography we did not rehearse. Ants with bracelets, friends with jokes, children with hands clean and faces sticky. The music is low. The clink is a tide mark. The scent of friars is a promise. Raza's staff move like a file, well-kept, no noise, clear purpose, kindness at the edges. Then the public thing happens. It is not dramatic until it is. Sarah approaches the bar with a cousin in tow and says to the bartender, a man whose patient eyes have seen everything and judged nothing, pour Astoria Gold for the Nakvi tables. She says it as if the sea owes her rent. The bartender looks to Raza, who is already there because managers live in the corners of rooms. He says, not loud, not soft, we are serving as contracted. The cousin laughs like a lighter flicked too many times. You people, she says, to no one and everyone. Always thinking papers are God. It is a line that cracks something. The aunties hear it and adjust their shawls. Imran hears it and looks like he is about to recite a manifest. My mother hears it and holds her breath with the steadiness of a prayer mat. Haroon hears it and his face does a grimace of apology that is not directed at anyone. It is directed at the air. I walk to the bar. I do not run because speed confuses accountability with drama. I step between the cousin and the bartender and let my hand rest on the cool metal of the counter. We are serving as contracted, I say, echoing Raza, and as permitted. Sarah does her little chin lift. Permitted by whom? She says, as if permits are a matter of social taste. I signal to Raza, who hands me the laminated copy of the excise permit, Nadia's clean work. The ink crisp, the stamp a blue that looks like a sky. I hold it so she can see. She reads without reading. Then she says the line. Not the microscript this time, but its sibling, the one she uses when a process thwarts a performance. You made this wedding your little office, she says, hissing the word office like it has moths in it. She steps back 1 inch, enough to put a sliver between us. Seems I'm not family. The second time lands different. People hear it. Heads turn the way birds do when a sound changes pressure. The breeze picks up and the lilies release a fresh wave that conflicts with the coriander and works anyway. I take the folder from my tote, the one with the logs and the V and the rehearsal emails I had hoped to never show in public. If you are going to be surgical, you must sometimes remove the cloth and let the overhead lights be unkind. I am going to ask something very specific, I say, voice even, almost a whisper. Which is the loudest thing you can do in a room that wants spectacle? Who asked the club last night to call V and request a change in the beverage selection? I have the certified log. I have the message to the caterer. I have the reversal request to the printer for the place cards. I have the attempted bank reversal for the deposit. I have the badge access log from the kitchen door showing a code used at 21:45 that was assigned to Nakvi guest. Tonight, we will not do silent sabotage. Tonight, we will comply with what we signed. The cousin scoffs. So what if someone called? It's hospitality. Raza steps in like a magistrate. It's a breach, he says. And in a licensed environment, breaches have consequences. We are not a Chowk tea stall. We are an audited venue. He touches the manifest iPad like a priest touches scripture. Haroon finally speaks with the man's voice again. Amy, he says. Did you call? Silence tastes like aluminum. Sarah looks at him first, then at me, and then at the room. She is an actress who sees her light and knows it cannot be shared. I handled, she says, chin high. Because someone has to. Handled what? I say reputation. Decorum, she says. And there is a sadness in it that makes me almost love her. Because I do understand the terror of becoming a story you didn't write. Our people, she says again, soft. They judge. I know, I say, just as soft. And that is why I documented. So they would judge facts, not sabotage. Nadia appears as if the script required her entrance here. She hugs me like a friend at a wedding and holds in her hand a folded letter. She doesn't make a speech. She hands me the letter and steps aside. It is on her firm's letterhead, addressed to Skylight House. CCT to me and to Haroon and to Sarah. It cites the contract clauses we are invoking. Tonight, 7D for beverage sourcing, 11A for audit rights, 12C for breach remedies. It notes that any future interference with contracted service will be considered an actionable breach and that, under the indemnity clause, any resulting costs will be borne by the breaching party. It is clear. It's kind. It is necessary. I fold it and put it back in the folder. Amna raises her hand slightly, as if to ask for the room's permission to be the person she is. May I speak? She says. The room grants it. We all want this to be lovely, she says. I am here to cook love into food. I cannot do that if I am asked to defy my own licenses. I also cannot be coerced on WhatsApp by unknown numbers. I will serve what we chose. If anyone objects, the exit door is that way. The kebabs will still be hot when you return. It is a joke made from steel. People laugh and then realize they are allowed to be relieved. Sarah looks at Haroon again. He looks at me. We are a triangle with 1,000,000 years of script behind us and 1 minute of honesty. I will not be shamed, she says, and the flaw in the sentence is not the word shamed. It's the subject. She has made herself the subject of an evening designed to be a plural. You are not, I say. You are being asked to comply. I do a last thing. It is small and it is everything. I pull a slim envelope from my tote and hand it to Raza. Inside are 2 printed cards, one for Sarah, one for my mother. They are identical except for the name. The card reads, Host Verification Access. It is the club's way of giving a person the permission to request logs, manifests, and service records from the manager during the event. I had asked for it after the Prado incident. I would like both our mothers to have equal access. I had told Raza it will reduce theater. He had smiled like a man who has been to 1,000 weddings and never seen this exact page. Raza hands Sarah her card. She takes it with a hand that trembles. This is mercy disguised as paperwork. She does not say thank you. She also does not call V again. Her chin stays high, but her mouth softens into something like a truce. She looks at the rose as if it is no longer a political statement, merely a drink that tastes like late light. We pour, we serve. The night moves forward on rails we laid. When the speeches start, they are short because that was the rule. Under 2 minutes or the mic cuts off. Imran makes a joke about manifests. Sumaya says one line, May your home be as organized as your love is. Haroon tells a story about the time I corrected the cashier at a dhaba because his math was off by 20 rupees. And the owner sent a free tea and asked me to come on Tuesdays to check the books. People laugh in the way you laugh when you have seen the evidence. When Sarah speaks, because of course she will, she keeps it to 30 seconds. She looks at the glass in her hand, then at me, then at the room. I wanted a different style, she says. But this is my son's happiness, and she is my daughter now. We will comply. The room exhales. She is clever. She used my word and made it a blessing. The rest is soft focus, the lights growing warmer as the night deepens. The ice sweating, the sound of many wrists of bangles moving at once. The salt of the ocean like a prayer in the background. The texture of the linen runner under my palm as I steady myself when someone says, you did it. As if weddings are sprints and not projects. The smell of coriander and smoke becomes our coat. Somewhere in a shallow bowl near the bar lies the silver USB, like a little talisman we did not need to use in combat, because its threat was enough to keep the peace. The day after the wedding, the ripples begin. Not dramatic, just administrative. Raza sends a thank you note with the service report attached, and a line, 0 deviations from contract. Compliant. Amna delivers a bundle of leftover sweets to my mother and leaves a printed sheet of the final service log for your files. She says, and my mother laughs for the first time in days. A light a decibel lower than joy looks in public. Nadia texts me a draft of a very gentle letter addressed to Sarah, summarizing the incidents and steps taken to ensure future clarity and prevent reputational harm. I ask her to soften it by 10%. She asks me why. I say, because in this family, we must leave the door open for a better script. She complies. 2 quiet apologies arrive without the noun apology in them. Sarah sends a box of mangoes to my mother with a note that says, for tea. She texts me a photo of her holding the host verification access card, captioned, I didn't know such things existed. I reply with a photo of the folded letterpress invitation in my palm, captioned, they exist because we make them. Haroon winds his arm around my waist in the kitchen that evening and says, you were scary. He means competent. I kiss his thumbnail because it is a root to his heart. A week later, Raza forwards me an email. The club is instituting a new policy requiring a co-host agreement, co-signed by all parties who might plausibly call themselves host filed and executed before any service begins. Amna named it the No Invisible Boards Policy, Raza writes. I smile so hard my face hurts. Process is love. Sumaya knocks on our door with a casserole dish and a story. Her niece read the line about being a clerk and wrote it in her school copybook. She thinks you are a superhero, Sumaya says. She thinks stamping is a power. I say it is. We codify boundaries like lawyers in a marital treaty, except ours is domestic. Spare keys are surrendered. Access codes for the club's shared drive are revoked. Shared family groups are redacted into channels with clear names like menu approvals and photos. Haroon and I sign a simple agreement. Every decision over X amount gets a memo and both signatures. This is not romance in the movies. This is romance like 2 people agreeing to file each other. I send an email to Hamid asking him to close the fraud incident formally, and he writes back with a PDF. Case closed. Records recorded and archived. I make a folder on our home computer named Wedding Final. I drag the logs inside. It feels like cleaning. There is one more ripple. The V number goes quiet for a week and then sends Amna a final message. Sorry if trouble caused. Amna forwards it to me with a thumb up emoji. I do not respond because sometimes mercy is not adding a stamp to a page that can be filed in a drawer labeled lessons. Haroon and I go for a walk on the promenade at night. The air is damp. The lights are a string we could pull to unspool the horizon. He says he was angry at me, then angry at himself. He says he loves his mother and hates what she did. He says he is learning what it means to be a bridge that doesn't let trucks it wasn't built for cross. I tell him I am learning to leave a paragraph unfilled. We stand near a vendor selling corn that tastes like storm, and the salt collects in the corners of our lips and makes us alive. 2 months later, Sarah attends a cousin's wedding where the bar is a chaos of favors and cash. She sends me a photo of a handwritten sign that reads, Ask for what you want, propped on a plastic cup. She adds, they should hire you. I laugh and type, then delete, then type again. We can help anyone who wants to be helped. She replies with a single dot. It is a punctuation that has begun to mean we will find our way. I am careful with my triumphs. I do not parade. I also do not minimize. The story we tell in the world is that the caterer sided with me. It is true. It is also insufficient. What happened is that process sided with itself. The caterer, the manager, the lawyer, the bank. The neighbor all, the authorities we assemble. When we decide to live in a society sided with a quiet idea that dignity is a function, it is not what you feel, it is what you file. On our first Sunday as a married couple, Haroon and I wake to a house that smells like cardamom and late sleep. The light off the curtain is the color of custard. I make tea. He folds the newspaper into the geometry he prefers. We sit. I take a pen from the bowl by the window and write down 2 sentences on a little card that I slide into our household folder. Wedding closed. Accounts balanced. Lessons recorded. The verbs calm me. Closed, balanced, recorded. He reads the card and kisses my temple. We do not print it on letterpress. We do not frame it. It is enough to file in the drawer marked home. In the weeks that follow, there are fresh tests. A dinner where an uncle performs a joke about wives. A text in a family group that misrepresents a cost. A neighbor who assumes I do not know the rules for parking. Each time I dust off the toolkit, initiate, notify, verify, document. Not as a performance, but as a covenant. Months later, we throw a small dinner on our terrace, the first party in our own place. I line up the bottles again like little skyscrapers, labels aligned because some parts of us are bones. I print cards with Garamond in 10-point because coherence is a love language. I invite Sarah to pour the first glass. She chooses the non-alcoholic brute and hands it to my mother with a smile that is not theater, not entirely. She says, barely audibly to me, "You made it beautiful." I answer with the only line that fits into both our grammars. We complied together. A soft wind slides the napkins an inch. The lights breathe. Somewhere below us, the city hums like a well-oiled fan. In the glass, the bubbles rise in a column that looks like data only because I want them to. I take Haroon's hand. My mother laughs at a joke from Sumaya. Raza sends a text from a different wedding. Thinking of your policy. Amna posts a photo of a sauce spoon with the caption, "Precision tastes like care." Nadia says she's drafting a template. Co-host agreements for families who love each other. Enough to sign. At the very end of the night. When the plates are in the sink like commas in need of a sentence, I step onto the terrace alone. The city is a lattice of moving parts that happen to make a life. The air is a little cooler than the last time I noticed it. I smell someone frying onions in a kitchen that isn't mine. I hold the empty folder in my hand like a talisman, not because I need it, but because it reminds me that justice can be dignified if we give it a place to sit. I think of the first time she said it, then the second, and I let myself say it once, softly. To the humming city that judges less than we think, seems I'm not family. Then I smile because I know now I am in the only way that has ever mattered to me. I am family to the agreements we honored. I am kin to the people who chose service over spectacle. I am married to a man who learned to be a bridge with a toll. If this story made you breathe easier, share it with a friend who needs a quiet script for loud rooms. If you want more dignified justice stories, follow and send this to someone planning a wedding who could use a folder and a spine.